It was a stormy February night in 1984 when an 8-year-old boy woke up feeling cold. His blankets had been folded neatly below his knees. Not kicked off, not tangled, but folded. Something about it didn't feel right. He reached across the room to wake his little sister, just like they always did when the night felt a little too scary. But this time, his hand found only an empty bed. 5-year-old Renee Aitken was gone. The back door of the family home stood wide open, letting the wind and rain inside. Renee has never been seen again, and more than 40 years later, her disappearance still haunts the south coast town of Narooma, New South Wales. Police would eventually say they were in no doubt about the man they believed was responsible, but he died just weeks before he could ever be brought before a court. Before we get into this case, I just want to give a quick warning. This story involves the abduction of a child and includes discussions of child sexual abuse. Please take care of yourselves while listening. Welcome back to my channel. Today I've got another Missing in Minutes case for you where we cover missing persons cases that don't seem to have a lot of information but absolutely deserve to have their stories told. And if you are new here, welcome. I upload a Missing in Minutes case every Wednesday and also a full deep dive video every Sunday and plenty of shorts throughout the week. If you enjoy true crime, missing persons, and unsolved mysteries, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you never miss an upload. Now, let's get into today's case. Renee Aitken was just 5 years old and living near Narooma on the far south coast of New South Wales with her mum, Morna, and her mum's partner and her older brother, Brad. The family had only recently moved from Victoria, and by all accounts, Renee was a fearless, confident little girl. On her very first day of kindergarten, she reportedly put her arm around a little boy who was crying and told him not to worry, that she'd look after him. I think that says so much about the kind of kid she was. On the evening of February 16th, 1984, the family spent time together. They were eating fish and chips at the beach before heading home for baths and bed. Renee and Brad went to sleep in their bedroom they share. Police believe someone entered the home through the back door, walked into the children's bedroom, and took Renee from her bed while her brother slept just a few feet away. Brad woke at around 4:45 the next morning feeling cold. His blanket had been folded neatly below his knees. Confused, he reached over to wake Renee, but she wasn't there. At first he thought she might have gone to the bathroom. He even looked in the fridge before eventually finding the back door standing wide open. That's when the alarm was raised. What followed was the biggest search the region had ever seen. More than 200 police officers, SES volunteers, and local residents searched the coastline from Mystery Bay to Bodalla for 2 weeks. Despite all those people searching, they found nothing. No clothing, no belongings, and no sign of Renee. More than 40 years later, she has still never been found. For years, Renee's case went cold. Police followed up countless leads and rumors over the years. At some point, there was speculation that Renee's mum or her partner may have even been involved in her disappearance. But detectives later said those theories were most certainly unfounded. Both were cleared, and people who knew the family consistently described Renee and Brad as well cared for and deeply loved. Then in 1998, the investigation got a fresh set of eyes. A detective who had recently been posted in the area decided to reopen the case and go back through the original investigation from the very beginning. His team revisited leads that hadn't been fully explored, looked into information that had come to light after the case first went cold, and re-examined reports of suspicious ground disturbances that had been made over the years. They even tracked down young women who believed or had been told they might actually be Renee. It was slow, painstaking work, but eventually the investigation led detectives back to a familiar name, a man who had been on their radar since the 1980s, Brian James Fitzpatrick, better known to some as Spider. As detectives dug deeper, they kept coming back to Brian James Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick had a connection to Renee's family. Renee's aunt had met him through her employer, and in early 1984, they had traveled to Narooma on a fishing trip with the aunt's boss and his teenage son. During the trip, Fitzpatrick stayed at the flat where Renee and her family were living, just days before she disappeared. According to Renee's aunt, Fitzpatrick returned to the flat on the night Renee vanished, supposedly to collect a blanket he'd left behind, which is odd. Renee's mum's partner also recalled Fitzpatrick turning up between 5 and 6 o'clock the following morning, around the time the family realized Renee was missing. One detail stayed with him over the years. He said Fitzpatrick was sweating heavily despite it being a cool morning. Then in 1987, police interviewed Fitzpatrick while he was serving a prison sentence in Melbourne for indecent assault. The offence had been committed just weeks after Renee disappeared and involved Renee's 12-year-old cousin. During that interview, detectives said Fitzpatrick told them he'd driven past the family's flat 3 times on the night Renee disappeared before eventually parking at a nearby beach to listen to music and go for a swim. Renee's aunt later challenged that account, saying Fitzpatrick was terrified of sharks and would never have gone swimming like he claimed. The detective who conducted that interview later told the Coronial inquest that he was in no doubt Fitzpatrick was involved in Renee's disappearance. It's really important to point out, though, that Fitzpatrick was never charged over Renee's disappearance, and he died before any of the evidence could be tested in a criminal trial. He has never been found guilty in relation to this case. When the investigation was reopened in 1998, Fitzpatrick refused to be interviewed again. Then in 2003, just weeks before he was due to give evidence at the Coronial inquest into Renee's disappearance, he was killed when his car struck a concrete power pole in northern Victoria. Police believe the crash was intentional, although his partner disputed that and denied it was suicide. The Coronial inquest went ahead anyway, opening in Albany in August 2003, 19 years after Renee disappeared. Over several emotional days, the court heard evidence from detectives, family members, and Renee's aunt, who became visibly emotional as she spoke about the guilt she'd carried for years after introducing Fitzpatrick to the family. In the end, the coroner handed down an open finding. He concluded that Renee had almost likely been murdered on or long after the night she disappeared. He also accepted that Fitzpatrick was the primary person of interest. However, he found there wasn't enough admissible evidence for the case to realistically be put before a jury. But the story didn't end there. In 2006, another name entered the picture, Michael Guider. And we've all heard this before because of Samantha Knight's case, which I covered on my channel already. So if you haven't watched it, there's a lot more information about him in that video. So Michael Guider, who was convicted in 1986 of a murder of the 9-year-old Samantha Knight. So Michael Guider was found to have kept scrapbooks containing newspaper clippings about Renee's disappearance. Investigators also learned that he had reportedly drawn a sketch of a young girl who resembled Renee. A former cellmate later claimed Guider repeatedly drew pictures of a girl he called Renee. Despite those claims, police have consistently said there isn't enough evidence to formally link Guider to Renee's disappearance, and he has never been charged in relation to this case. More than 40 years later, Renee's family still doesn't have the answers they've spent decades searching for. Over the years, Renee's mum has provided DNA samples more than once. One was after a woman in the United States believed she might be Renee, and another was as part of a New South Wales police initiative comparing family DNA against hundreds of unidentified human remains. Neither led to a match. Brad has also spoken publicly about growing up in the shadows of the night, the folded bed blanket, the empty bed, and the questions that have never gone away. Years later, he named his own daughter Renee, not to replace his sister, but to honor her memory. Today, more than 40 years after she vanished, Renee Aitken is still officially listed as a missing persons. No one has ever been charged over her disappearance. There's now a plaque overlooking the Narooma coastline with Renee's name on it. And for so many people in the community, this case has never really been over. If you have any information about what happened to Renee Aitken, no matter how small it might seem, you're urged to contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. And if this case has brought up anything difficult for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to someone you trust or a support service in your area. That is all from me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video informative, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. Also, I would love to hear your theories or even just some nice comments for the family. It really does help my channel grow, but more importantly, it helps keep cases like Renee's in the public eye. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.